I never imagined a single day would bring us to the brink of destruction. As 2,200 nukes loomed, the sky was painted in shades of fire and despair, swirling like a canvas of chaos above our heads. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stood there, heart pounding, surrounded by silhouettes of my friends, their faces etched with disbelief. The air was thick with tension, like the moment before a storm breaks. We had known something was coming, but nothing could prepare us for this. It felt surreal, like stepping into a nightmare where every whisper of wind carried the weight of 1,000 fears. My younger brother, Ethan, clung to my arm, his small frame trembling against the chaos. He looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes, searching for assurance. "Sam, what is happening?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, drenched in uncertainty. I took a deep breath, my throat tight, and fought against the lump that threatened to choke me. I had no answers. How could I protect him when I felt so powerless myself? In that moment, I thought of Mom. She had always painted our world with hope, always assured us that everything would be all right. But her comfort felt like a fading echo now, lost in the cacophony of sirens and the distant rumble of impending doom. My heart ached for her. Where was she? Was she safe? My mind raced as panic gripped me like an iron fist. We gathered in the town square, each face a mirror of fear and confusion. The distant rumbling grew louder, a relentless drumbeat signaling destruction. I could see other kids too, faces streaked with tears, mothers holding their crying children close. We were all just families, friends, searching for solace in a moment fraught with chaos. A stranger pushed through the crowd, his voice trembling. "They're saying it's real. We have to evacuate." Panic erupted like fire, swallowing us whole. I felt my heart sink. How could we leave? Our lives were here, grounded in this very spot. Yet the thought of staying felt like staring into the abyss. Suddenly, a blinding flash lit up the horizon. My breath hitched in my chest, and for a heartbeat, time froze. Gasps erupted around me, like shards of glass. I turned to Ethan, who was crying now, tears streaming down his innocent face. I crouched down to his level, taking his trembling hands in mine. "Stay close to me. No matter what happens, we stick together, okay?" But deep down, a voice whispered, urging me to flee, to run from the terror looming on the horizon. My heart raced faster than my thoughts. Behind the chaos, I saw the faces of my friends, their eyes wide with terror and helplessness. What would become of us? What would be left? Then, without warning, the world fell silent. An unnatural hush enveloped us, wrapping everything in darkness. My breath escaped me, and I squeezed Ethan's hands tighter, my own heart breaking under the weight of the unknown. Was this the beginning of the end? My mind raced, battling against the impending truth looming before us. All I could see were those shadows, dancing in the dark, each thud of my heart echoing the silent question that now haunted us all. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. In the stillness that followed the blinding flash, a tremor coursed through my body, coursing like electricity through my veins. I could feel the hairs on my neck stand up, an instinct warning me that this silence was deceptive. The weight of despair pressed heavily on my chest as the faces around me lost their vibrancy, swallowed by an encroaching shadow that seemed to consume the world. "Sam!" Ethan's whisper cut through the quiet, pulling me back from the edge of my spiraling thoughts. I looked down to see his lip quivering, eyes wide with confusion and fear. In that moment, my protective instincts kicked in, igniting defiance against the despair that threatened to engulf us. "We need to find Mom," I said firmly, though doubt pricked at my resolve, before Ethan could respond. The silence shattered with a tremor so fierce it made the ground beneath us shudder. I held on to him tightly, my heart racing as the echoes of chaos returned, drowning out our fear with the roar of panic. "We have to move," I shouted, the urgency of those words feeling almost futile against the backdrop of impending doom. Families began to scatter like leaves blown in the wind, voices rising in a cacophony of desperation. In a moment of clarity, I spotted a group of neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Morales, from across the street, and their children, who were barely older than Ethan. They were gathered near the entrance of an alleyway, fear etched in their faces, but also a flicker of resolve. "We need to stick together. It's safer in numbers." I called out to them, hoping to gather as many as possible that as we joined them. Mr. Morales turned to me, eyes full of worry. "Have you seen Maria?" The desperation in his voice struck a chord in me. While we were all terrified, the desire to find our loved ones thrummed as a shared rhythm, and in this chaos, we could lean on each other. "No, I haven't. We need to find everyone," I replied, feeling an unexpected surge of determination. We could not let fear shatter our spirit. We needed to carry on for those who depended on us as we navigated the narrow alleyways. I felt a fleeting warmth flicker, a small, heartwarming moment as we spotted Mrs. Romero, an elderly woman from our neighborhood, cradling her cat Louie against her chest. Despite the chaos, she wore a gentle smile, as if offering comfort when everything felt so dark. "You children, stay close," she called out, her voice steady. "We'll find safety together." We nodded, her unwavering spirit igniting a sense of hope deep within me. Surrounded by the young and the old, the collective weight of our shared burdens felt lighter in that fleeting moment of compassion. As we moved through the streets, the murmurs of strangers became softer, yet each face mirrored our fear. We finally reached a community center, a blockade set up by local officials making an effort to house families able to escape their homes. A mix of emotions washed over me: fear, relief, and trepidation, all colliding in a storm inside my chest. The sight of neighbors coming together in the face of horror was like a balm for my troubled heart. Yet, amidst the reunion, something gnawed at me. My thoughts drifted again to my mom. "We have to keep looking," I murmured, mostly to myself. As we scanned the crowd, searching faces disappeared beyond the swell of people, and my stomach twisted in anxiety. I couldn't shake the eerie feeling of something being terribly wrong. Then someone shouted, "Look!" A small child pointed to the roof of a nearby building where smoke was billowing, dark and ominous. Gasps rippled through the crowd, a shared realization that it might not be over yet. "Ethan, stay here," I warned, racing toward the sound. I was drawn into a fervent crowd, driven by something I couldn't explain. A voice throbbed behind me, urging me to find the source. It was then that I felt a hand grasp my shoulder. I turned around to find a familiar face, the gentle eyes of our neighbor, Mr. Lewis, filled with fear. "They say it's only a matter of time," he said, his voice trembling. "They're saying the worst is yet to come. We have to prepare ourselves." A pang of dread hit me, and I turned back toward Ethan, who was nervously clenching Mrs. Romero's hand. He looked so small, so fragile against the looming uncertainty. I could feel the walls of terror closing in around us as my breath caught in my throat. "Sam!" Ethan's voice broke my reverie. His small form pointed a trembling finger toward the horizon. A small plume of dust was rising, too large and too fast to be a simple car stirring the ground. "What's that? Is it?" My heart sank, and I grasped Ethan's hand tightly, rallying myself to be the anchor for him as panic bubbled beneath the surface. Suddenly, the ground shook again, a tremor that signaled not just fear, but something worse. I turned to the faces of our neighbors surrounding us, the unspoken questions settling heavily in the air like a storm cloud. What awaited us now? Just then, the tremor intensified, echoing ominously within me. Was it the beginning of a deeper nightmare? I fought against the suffocating darkness within, holding fervently onto the small flame of hope fanned by those around me. Yet, as I turned to lead Ethan away from the chaos, I looked out toward the horizon once more. And what I saw stole my breath away, an unmistakable silhouette unfurling amidst the smoke. A dark figure, moving closer against the chaos. The ground seemed to swallow my words, and my heart thundered in my chest. What were we facing next? I felt the blood drain from my face as I registered the figure, a shadow sharpening against the swirling gray smog. The air turned dense, heavy with the palpable dread that lapped at my throat like a rising tide. I had always been accustomed to the safety of the known, the comfortable hum of monotony, a soft cocoon where fear had no place. Yet, now it felt as if the universe had flipped inside out, and everything I had taken for granted was teetering on the edge of an abyss. Sam, please, what is it? Ethan's small hand gripped mine tightly, his eyes wide and searching. I could feel the tremor of his body against mine, a raw edge of terror that mirrored my own. Is it Mom? Is she? No, I don't know, I stammered, desperate to shield him from my rising panic. I turned my eyes back towards the figure, the silhouette growing clearer, a monstrous shape outlined by the crackling embers of destruction, as if it were born from the flames of our collective fears. As I stared, caught in the web of uncertainty, I saw Mr. Lewis step closer, his palms raised in a placating gesture. Let us just stay calm. All right? We'll figure this out. The warmth of his voice cut through the fog of panic, offering a brief respite. Ethan's grip loosened slightly in response, the tension abating just enough for a tentative breath. But even as those words seeped into my mind, another tremor rippled through the ground, more violent than before, and I gasped as I fell back, instinctively pulling Ethan close against my chest. The sounds of the crowd morphed into a low, haunted murmur, people leaning into each other in search of comfort, their expressions etched with fear as the building shook. Hold my hand, Ethan. Don't let go, I urged, feeling the world spin beneath us as I instinctively moved us toward the community center, now resembling a beacon amidst the chaos. Let us get inside. Look, cried a voice, rising above the chaos. I turned just in time to see Mrs. Romero's pleading eyes as she pointed toward the figure once more, which was now swiftly advancing, casting an enormous shadow over us. People around us began to retreat, propelled by fear, and instinctively, I hunched over Ethan, protectively shielding him as I felt the weight of the world settling heavily onto my shoulders. Stay close, I shouted, my voice shaking as I scanned the area for any sign of safety. We were losing whatever cohesion had held us together. Then, in that moment of despair, a little girl clutching a stuffed bear broke through the crowd and grabbed my leg, her face a portrait of pure uncertainty. Are we gonna die? She whimpered, and the earnestness of her gaze sent a knife of ice through me. Before I could answer, Mr. Morales swept in, his face a mixture of concern and stern determination. We have to keep moving. In here. He gestured insistently toward a door leading into the community center, an oasis that felt like it might crumble at any moment. Pushing through the throng, I could feel the press of bodies, hear the murmurs of lost hopes and desperate hearts. I didn't know where I was leading, just that we had to escape the clamoring shadows closing in around us. When we reached the center, the air thickened with anxiety yet again. The faint glow of fluorescent lights flickered, reflecting our collective vulnerability. Inside, chaos reigned, with families clustered together. Some sobbed, others whispered prayers. A woman was cradling her infant, shushing the child softly. I felt a surge of desperation wash over me once more, as I shielded Ethan from the suffocating weight of despair that hung in the atmosphere like a storm cloud. Sam. His voice was small. What are we going to do? I promise we'll be safe. We just have to stay together, I replied, trying to sound more certain than I felt. I bit down on my lower lip, the tremor of uncertainty refusing to quiet. Just then, a man burst through the entrance, panting and wild-eyed. They've spotted it. They're saying it's moving toward the missile silos. The words fell like stones in silence, and everything shattered in an instant. The reality of sheer horror consuming the room. A murmur ran through the crowd, fear igniting in everyone's eyes like a wildfire. I felt Ethan clutching my side, trembling as despair etched itself deeper into his small frame. Sam, what does that mean? His voice quavered, breaking my heart. I don't know, I stammered, struggling to process the gravity of what I had just heard. The weight of the unknown, the audacity of fear, threatened to swallow me whole. Suddenly, a familiar face emerged in the crowd, a face I hadn't seen in what felt like an eternity. Maria, Mr. Morales' wife, was pushing through the throng. Panic flooded in her features. I had heard whispers of her involvement in local activism, but seeing her now, adorned in soot and fear, sent a shiver of recognition racing up my spine. "Where's Ethan?" she gasped, her eyes wild, and in an instant, the chaos morphed into something more profound, a connection entwined in a shared need for safety. She locked eyes with me, and the silence felt charged with emotion, a shared understanding of loss and hope swirling fiercely between us. "Right here," I shouted, pulling Ethan tighter against me, as I felt the weight of their lives and histories intertwine with my own. As Maria approached us, I could see fear ignite her eyes, and then, as the tremors started anew, deep resounding booms echoing from miles away, a single thought pierced through the chaos. What horror awaited us next? Would those whom we held dear be left in the wake of destruction? As my heart thudded painfully in sync with the trembling ground, the walls of the community center trembled with each tremor that rocked the earth. Yet it was the grip of fear that seemed to wrap its icy fingers around our hearts. I could feel Ethan's breaths growing shallow, and the terror reflected in his wide eyes mirrored my own growing despair. "Maria, we need to help everyone," I managed, my voice hoarse amidst the growing chaos. The realization that the emotional fabric of our community was unraveled, thread by thread, lodged hard in my throat. If we were going to have any hope of surviving, we would need to act swiftly. Her gaze flickered around the room, and with a choked breath, she nodded. "Let us gather everyone together. If we stick together, we can find a way through this." A soft flicker of determination sparked in her eyes, and for an instant, the heavy uncertainty morphed into a fragile flicker of hope. Working side by side, we began to organize the chaos. I felt the heat of unity surge as individual strangers just moments before came together. An elderly couple helped one another, their strands of silver hair catching the dim light like thin wires glimmering against the weight of impending doom. A teenage girl, resolute despite her tears, began to pass around water bottles, her shaky hands seeking solace in small acts of kindness. Yet just when I thought we would find our footing, a deafening crash erupted outside, shaking the very foundation beneath our feet. People screamed, panic rippling through the crowd like wildfire. I instinctively pulled Ethan against me, my heart racing. "It's okay. It's going to be okay," I whispered, though reassurance felt suffocated in the air filled with confusion. Somewhere, amidst the chaos, I heard someone desperately crying out for a loved one. "Walter, where are you?" The anguish in her voice sliced through the chaos, igniting something deep within me. We were all bound by this shared fear, the longing for connection cutting across the tremors. "Sam, I don't want to die," Ethan whimpered, his voice laced with innocence lost too soon. "I know, Bud," I said, my throat constricting as I fought to hold back the tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. "But we have to be brave. We have to find a way out of this." Then, in that moment of despair, I found myself locking eyes with a man huddled alone in a corner, his face stricken with grief as he clutched a photograph to his chest. It was only then that I remembered Walter, someone I had shared beer and laughter with just weeks prior. The swirling dread of loss reared up like a monster. What if it was him out there, unable to find his way back to safety? "I'll check outside," I declared, my voice firm, knowing that I couldn't be a bystander in this. My heart wouldn't allow it. "I have to make sure if he's okay." Before anyone could protest, I pushed through the crowd, inching toward the entrance. As I stepped through the door, the air felt thick with the acrid stench of smoke, the sunlight blotted out by clouds of ash swirling above. The streets were unrecognizable, and the cacophony of sirens and distant explosions created a discordant symphony of terror that punctured the exterior silence. I caught sight of the familiar jagged shape of a car, crumpled like paper against the debris scattered across the asphalt. But I wasn't searching for the car. I was searching for Walter, searching for the connection I feared I may have lost. Suddenly, through the haze, I spotted him, a silhouette moving among the wreckage, a chaotic figure just beyond my reach. "Walter!" I shouted, my voice strained against the intensity of the noise. I took a step closer, adrenaline igniting my limbs as I navigated through the debris. "Walter! It's Sam!" I called again, hope flaring in my chest. But the moment was fleeting, as I watched him turn, his face a canvas of confusion and devastation, streaked with soot. He looked disoriented, as if the world had spun off its axis, and in that instant, I saw it, the haunted look of potential loss in his eyes. The ground shook again. The tremors felt like a heart trapped beneath the weight of despair. Then, I felt something cold and jagged clip my ankle. I stumbled and glanced down just as a bone-chilling explosion rocked the ground, sending a shockwave sprawling over me. The world pulled taut as I fell, and the ground swallowed me whole. I could barely take a breath as darkness threatened to overtake. And just as quickly, the landscape of my heart shifted, my last image being Walter, reaching out with desperation, and then nothing but an enveloping silence that stood in stark contrast to the chaos in the depths of my mind. A singular thought screamed louder than any explosion. What horrors awaited when the smoke began to clear? Would I ever get to hold Ethan again? Or had I unwittingly stepped into a set of loss that kept growing wider, again and again? I blinked awake to the sound of muffled voices, the chaotic symphony of despair now replaced by a disorienting stillness. White light diffused through a veil of dust, sending splinters of brightness stabbing through my mind. I struggled to sit up, my body resisting like a heavy sack of stones. As I lifted my head, panic surged through me when I realized I was no longer outside. The oppressive weight of silence, mingled with a soft, persistent ache in my ankle, began to offer a stark contrast to the chaos from before. "Sam, wake up!" A familiar voice broke through the haze, and I turned to find Maria crouched beside me, her eyes wide with a mixture of relief and fear. I thought I lost you." I swallowed hard, the gravelly remnants of adrenaline choking my throat. "Where's Walter?" The question tumbled forth, the urgency exploding from my lips. "Still out there," she responded, concern etching deeper lines into her forehead. "I don't know if but there are other people missing, too. The whole community is fractured." I tried to rise, but the sharpness of pain shot through my ankle, forcing me back down. "We have to find him, Maria," I rasped, my determination igniting once more. The fractured pieces of my reality began to settle beneath the weight of a new horror. What if Walter wasn't just lost? What if he was one of those we couldn't rescue? "Yes, we do," she whispered, her voice quaking as she looked away. The flicker of hope that ignited earlier dimmed, overshadowed by the fear that had taken root in her heart. But a memory threaded through my mind, Walter laughing. His voice warm and inviting nudged me toward resolution. "You and Ethan take this," Maria urged, pressing into my hands a crumpled water bottle. The warmth of her touch a reminder of life still flowing amid the chaos. I nodded, grateful but unwilling to bend to helplessness. "We'll find him together. We can't leave anyone behind." But as I struggled to stand again, fresh waves of pain surged through my ankle, the reality of pain magnifying my impotence in the face of uncertainty. "Sam, you need to stay," she urged, holding my shoulders firmly as if to anchor me in this maelstrom of grief. "Ethan needs you." The mention of his name made my heart skip a beat. "Where is he? Is he safe?" My voice rose, panic creeping back in. "He's inside with some of the others. They've all come together, trying to help," Maria said, her eyes welling with unspoken sorrow. "But we can only hold on for so long. The cracks are showing, and the tremors they keep coming." I struggled against her grip. "We can't hold on. We have to do something. We can't just wait." In that moment, I feared being trapped between helplessness and the impending darkness of losing those I cherished. As if sensing my turmoil, Maria wrapped her arms around me, anchoring me against her heartbeat, soothing yet heavy. We shared a moment bound by our vulnerability, but even that flicker of solidarity was tinged with urgency. "Don't lose hope, Sam," she whispered fiercely. "Just keep moving forward." A determined nod passed between us, and for the first time since the chaos began, a thread of unity stitched through my heart amid the fragments of fear that clawed at me. With Maria supporting my weight, we made our way back into the extent of despair. Surrounded by familiar faces, jumbled expressions of worry, and hope etched in the shadows, we spotted Ethan sitting close to a window, laughter rising like smoke amid the underlying grief. His essence cut through the darkness surrounding us, grounding me with renewed strength. I glanced out the window and my heart plummeted. The aftermath of destruction stretched endlessly across the horizon. The distant hum of chaos mingling with the sound of sirens, a haunting lullaby that seemed to warn us of greater threats looming beyond our fragile sanctuary. Thus, I wished desperately for a moment of peace, a shred of joy that could unravel despair. Then, just down the street, I saw a flicker of motion beneath the warped shell of a fallen building. My pulse quickened. "Look," I exclaimed, my heart racing as I started to move toward the window. "There's someone." Maria, however, gripped my arm tightly. "We can't go out there. It's too dangerous." But a hidden spark ignited within me, pushing me to risk everything. "I have to know. What if it's Walter?" Turning back, I caught a glimpse of Ethan gripping a toy bravely as he watched me unfold, the sorrowful apprehension on his delicate face. Before I could lose my resolve, I shouted, "Ethan, stay here with Maria. I have to check." A weight settled heavily in my stomach as I stepped away. I could feel their eyes following me, merging regret with determination. But as I took my first faltering steps outside, my heart collided with a new terror, and dread seeped into my bones. I didn't know what awaited me, but I felt as if I might fracture, lost in whatever lay ahead. The ground shook violently, almost mockingly reminding me of every lifeline I hadn't yet grasped. The realization crashed down like a storm. I might be too late. I stumbled forward, propelled by a frantic urgency. And just when I thought hope might emerge from the shadows, a deafening explosion filled the air, sending me sprawling back against the ground in blind terror. The landscape around me transformed into flames and debris, while somewhere in that maelstrom of chaos, I glimpsed the silhouette of a figure. I caught my breath, confusion blurring my vision. Was it a friend or a foe lurking in this hellscape of uncertainty? And then the shocking realization struck. My own name echoed at the edge of the flame as a chilling whisper. "Sam, help!" beckoned like a ghost in the storm, dragging me deeper into a web of fear and uncertain fate. The heat scorched my skin as I lay there, paralyzed by the chaotic confusion swirling around me. I blinked rapidly to clear the debris clouding my vision, desperately searching for the owner of that haunting whisper. "Sam, help!" The voice hung in the air like a spectral call, tinging my heart with a sense of dread. I pushed myself onto my elbows, every movement igniting the sharp ache radiating from my ankle. The ground beneath me was still trembling, but somehow, it managed to fortify my resolve. I couldn't retreat now. I had to find the person who had called for me, even if it felt like chasing shadows amid a storm. Coughing through the acrid smoke that swirled around, I scanned the area, the aftermath of destruction painting a surreal image of chaos. The stark shards of concrete jutted out like jagged teeth from a wounded giant, and amidst the wreckage, I caught another hint of movement. My heart leaped and fell in one swift motion. Was it Walter? Or was it an entirely new specter to haunt me? "Sam!" I heard the voice again, stronger, as if it were fighting through the rumble and chaos just for me. "Sam!" My heart thundered in my chest, spurring me to forge ahead. "I'm coming!" I managed to shout through the coughs, pushing my body to stand despite the pain clawing at my ankle. Dust-filled air stung my eyes, and I tripped but caught myself on the edge of a broken wall, the rough surface grounding me. But in every notion of safety, there loomed the ever-present reality of risk. Above me, an overhead structure creaked ominously, threatening to collapse at any moment. The weight of despair pressed upon me like an invisible force, but each breath I drew was filled with newfound tenacity, a fierce need for connection, for hope. "Help!" The mysterious voice called once more, drawing me into the labyrinth of debris. It tugged at fibers of recognition, and with every step I took forward, doubts gnawed at my insides. What if I was chasing a ghost? What if I unearthed deeper despair instead of salvation? Yet still, the fleeting warmth of kindness from Maria wrapped around me, urging me on to not give in to the overwhelming tide that as I stumbled toward the sound. I noticed flickers of light reflecting off something shiny, a piece of metal half buried beneath the rubble. I paused, my instincts flaring, pulling me toward it. In just a moment, I could see the outline of a hand reaching out, desperately clawing for escape. "Hold on. I'm coming," I shouted more urgently, realizing that the voice sounded strangely familiar. My heart raced again as recognition clawed at my mind and leapt into my throat. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. The voice, it was Walter's. "Sam." Walter's voice vibrated with concern as he struggled against the weight pinning him to the ground. "I can't get out." Without hesitation, I rushed forward, ignoring the pain that shot through my foot with every lurch forward. I could see his face peeking through a crevice, smeared with grime but filled with terrified determination. My heart soared amidst the chaos. He was here. I wasn't too late. "Just wait," I urged him, pushing debris aside, my hands shaking but driven by adrenaline. I wrestled against rocks and rubble, expelling every ounce of strength to free him. I'm almost there." I strained against the oppressive weight layered above him, feeling a hot swell of urgency bubbling within. Walter's eyes met mine, swimming with a mixture of fear and hope. "I don't know how much longer I can hold on, Sam. Hurry." The fear in his voice gnawed at me, sharpening my focus as I pulled only to be met with resistance. My muscles burned, and for a fleeting moment, I faltered, a torrent of panic swelling within as it hit me. What if I couldn't get him out? "No, I won't allow it," I shouted defiantly. I thrust harder, my body screaming in protest, and with one more frantic push, the debris slipped away like it was sewn from threads of hope. I felt Walter's hand brush against mine, a connection pulsing with relief that electrified my body. He grasped my wrist tightly, and I yanked, pulling with all my might. "Almost," I cried, feeling light creeping back in, a glimmer of salvation shining through the darkness threatening to swallow us whole. With one final heave, I felt him pull free, collapsing against me as I wrapped my arms around him. I thought I had lost you," he gasped, breathless and trembling as he sank into my embrace. Then the ground heaved violently again, sending us both sprawling. But amid it all, I stayed wrapped around him, breathing with relief, willing to shield him from whatever storm loomed. I could feel his heart racing beneath his ribs, mirroring the wild rhythm of my own. "We need to move," I said, forcing myself back to reality, the fear not fully shedding its weight. "Sam." This way, Walter pointed, but as I turned to heed his direction, I was jolted by another explosion a block over, shrouding my view in a new cloud of chaos. The blast echoed around us like a monstrous roar, and I instinctively pulled Walter closer. Distant screams blanketed the echoes as panic pulsed through my veins. "Do you hear that?" I gasped, suddenly aware that there was a different kind of fear now rippling through the fractured air. "Sam, we can't stay outside. We need to find shelter," Walter urged, but a chill gripped my heart, not just from the chaotic racket surrounding us. The urgency etched in his voice clashed with the heavy foreboding unfolding beyond. And then, like a crushing wave, reality swept over me. The shadows sprawled deeper into the streets, painted with desperate voices. "Ethan," I cried out involuntarily, panic peeking up my spine as I realized he was still inside, untouched but in a world just as chaotic as ours. What if the others, what if they? Walter started, but I felt my heart plummet as the weight of what-ifs began to pull me down. "No," I exhaled harshly, shaking my head with fierce resolve. "We can't think like that. We will find him. We'll get everyone back together." But as I pulled Walter toward our sanctuary, the ground trembled once again, and I caught a flicker of movement at the corner of my eye, dark shapes slinking through the shadows. My breath caught in my throat. We were not alone. And then, a chilling realization hit me. What if there were more dangers lurking in the dust and debris? What if this was not just about the tremors, but something deeper nested in the cracks of our once safe world? A cry rang out from the shadows, a voice I couldn't immediately recognize, and with it came a darkness that hinted at something sinister, and every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, to protect those I loved. But as I turned to Walter, fear crashing in alarmingly fast, all the tiny threads of hope we had clung to began to unravel, leaving us standing on a precipice, unsure of what lay ahead, caught between the echoes of despair and the uncertain glimmers of hope flickering just out of reach. Panic surged through me, coiling tightly around my chest as the cry echoed rather than receded. A desperate plea that chilled me to the core. It took the voice a moment to register a name from the shadows of my mind that I didn't want to believe I was hearing. Sam. Help me. Ethan. I whispered, dread crawling under my skin. My thoughts raced faster than my feet could carry me. As I tried to construct a plan, I had to hold on to hope, to the belief that we could find him. But fear gnawed at the edges of my thoughts, threatening to swallow me whole. Walter grasped my arm firmly, his grip both anchoring and alarming me. We need to go now, Sam. We can't expose ourselves here. Not without Ethan. I breathed, grounding my resolve even as panic clawed its way to the surface. He might be hurt. He could be. I swallowed hard, refusing to finish the thought. My heart ached, knowing that the potential truth was more terrifying than any explosion set off around us. As if responding to my resolve, the ground shook violently again, a reminder of the chaos ensnaring us. Distant screams returned, the echoes of despair clawing back at my heart. I took a deep breath, fighting the murmur of uncertainty that rose with the tremors. I can't just leave him, I said, voice cracking. If it were anyone else, I'd say yes, Walter replied softly, his eyes reflecting the weight of our shared fear. But we can't risk it. We don't know how many more might be out there. The urgency of the situation bubbled between us, an unspoken understanding intertwining with the threat hanging ominously over our heads. But as much as I wanted to relent, I found myself pulled toward the darkness from which Ethan's voice had emanated, a vibrant tether stronger than the danger that threatened to envelop us. I can't live with myself if we leave, I finally murmured, more to myself than Walter. The weight of my words lingered in the air, and Walter frowned, casting glances around cautiously. His jaw tightened as if he battled between wanting to shield me and permitting me the choice. You'll risk everything for him? Her unyielding resolve washed over him, tugging at the remnants of our hope. Without hesitation, I replied, searching his face for support, willing him to understand. We've already lost so much, and already, I could feel the biting chill of loneliness creeping up my spine, feeding off the chaos we had witnessed since the day began. Walter sighed, the surface of uncertainty still rolling behind his eyes. Yet I could see a flicker of understanding forming. The struggle was not solely mine. Okay, he finally said, his voice low but unwavering. But we don't have much time. We need a way to navigate through the rubble safely. The plan we formed felt like a fragile thread, but it was a start. We began pushing through the debris cautiously, weaving between the threats that lurked in the shadows. Each bump and thud echoed, a reminder of the precariousness of our steps. The air around us bore witness to the despair tainting every remaining moment. I focused on the voices. My heart danced between hope and fear as I again called out, Ethan, can you hear me? The soft echo of his name unlocked another flicker of recognition in my heart, a heartbeat reminding me that someone still needed me, that I was not entirely lost in the descent of chaos. Sam, came another voice, closer now, filled with anger and pain. Get out. You have to get out. But it was too late. The darkness closed in around us, swallowing my breath as I pushed deeper. Where are you? I cried out again, desperation clawing at me. Every fiber of my being aimed to reach him, to fight against the turmoil of this world that never seemed to slow down. Ethan, answer me. It's too late, Sam. Ethan's voice was muffled, a fearful whisper against the backdrop of destruction. You don't understand. You need. A cracking sound shattered the air like a lightning strike, interrupting him. Walter grabbed my arm more tightly, guiding me through the narrow path toward Ethan's voice, but I could feel a creeping fear tugging as the ground beneath us shifted yet again. Hold on, I shouted, adrenaline fueling my every move. We're almost there. With one determined surge, I thrust aside the remnants of a wall that had once stood strong. Dust cascaded like whispers from a long-forgotten past as I forced my body through. There, in the half-light amid the debris, I finally caught sight of Ethan's pale face, contorted with pain and fear. "Sam," he rasped, a light flickering in his eyes at my appearance, but it flickered like the final breath of a candle in the dark. I rushed forward to hold him, but a sudden tremor knocked me back. "Get down," Walter shouted, pulling me away from a collapsing chunk of concrete that careened towards us. In a split second, I grasped Ethan's hand instinctively, but the ground bucked violently once more, the tremors rumbling beneath us. "Sam." Ethan's voice rose amidst the chaos, but I felt a wave of horror wash over me as I realized I couldn't hold onto both of them. "Ethan, I can't keep you safe too," I cried in despair, frantically searching for a way to pull both of them out from under the impending doom, my heart racing in a wild attempt to defy gravity, but our lifeline was slipping away. Then, just as hope seemed lost, a figure plunged from the shadows, someone I never expected to see. It was Maria, eyes alight with fierce determination as she lunged toward us, hands outstretched. "Grab my hand," she called, adrenaline fueling the urgency of her voice. But to whom would it lead? To whom could I willingly let go? Frozen between the impeding darkness of despair and the fleeting glimmer of hope that seemed nearly impossible, I stood on the precipice of choice, the weight of my decision lying heavily in the air. Would I make the leap for one, or would we be swallowed whole, lost to the chaos? The unfathomable question hung between us, clashing against the backdrop of doom, inching closer and closer, threatening to claim what little we had fought so dearly to save. The world around us surged with torment, the ground cracking open and shadows dancing in the smoke. I could feel the heat of despair wrapping around my ankles as I wavered, torn between two lives that meant everything to me. Each heartbeat echoed the impending collapse, a ticking clock, with time slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. "Sam, please, I need you." Ethan's voice was haunting, laced with a fragility that threatened to shatter my resolve. I had never seen him so vulnerable, so close to the brink. But Maria loomed just as vividly in the periphery, her presence a solemn beacon of unexpected hope. "Just take my hand," she demanded, her fiery spirit piercing through my haze of panic. For a fleeting moment, I remembered the laughter we shared in quieter times, the joy that once filled the air before the world was turned upside down. But this was no game. The stakes were real, and every choice carried the weight of life and death. My chest tightened painfully as I looked from Maria's determined eyes to Ethan's pleading stare. I wanted to believe we could find a way to save both of them. In that small wish lay a lifeline to sanity amongst the fray. But a deafening crash echoed, reverberating through the air like the last heartbeat of a dying world. And with it came the stark reality. I couldn't hold onto everything. "Sam, I'm slipping." Ethan's voice grew faint against the clamor surrounding us, and my heart lanced with fear. I surged toward him, my feet faltering through the debris, each hesitant step an agonizing weight that threatened to uproot me entirely. "Hold on," I shouted, reaching desperately with one arm toward Ethan, knowing that my other hand could only grasp one more life-saving lifeline. Maria's eyes mirrored my internal battle, a reflection of an unbroken spirit, but her presence was also a stark reminder of our earlier moments together. "I can't lose you too. Please, no." Walter's voice cut through the chaos, his own fear bubbling to the surface, but his words were drowned out by the din of destruction. I could see it in his face. He feared for us both as he clutched the wreckage around him. Instinctively, I stepped closer to Ethan, our fingers grazing against one another. I was losing the battle, the chasm between us widening as Ethan strained, his face etched with pain and desperation. "Sam, I can't hold on much longer." In that instant, everything crystallized, the choice became unforgivingly clear. "Ethan," I cried, the name reverberating in my soul. "I love you. I won't leave you, I promise." I thrust my hand out toward Maria, who was still struggling to reach me. "Take my hand, please." But another tremor roiled beneath us, and I felt my heart beat faster, in sync with the seismic rhythms of the earth. As the world tilted, sending stones raining down around us, I was forced to make a fateful choice. Would I pull Ethan toward me, sacrificing Maria in the chaos, or would I extend my hand to the brave soul who had risked her life for us both? Time slowed. I glanced back at Maria, and her resolve didn't falter, but change flickered behind her eyes, and knowing that in this moment, she too might have chosen sacrifice for the greater good. Take my hand, Sam. I can get you out. Her voice broke through, fierce and unyielding. But I could feel the space between me and Ethan widening too quickly. Every passing second a knife twisting deeper, threatening to sever the bond that had held us together. As my resolve wrapped itself around the decision like a thick fog, I spring-latched toward Maria, ready to grasp her hand, when the world erupted with a deafening roar. An explosion hurled debris through the air, casting shadows that became darker and more menacing than ever before. Sam. Walter's voice was a distant echo, lost in the storm of destruction. As my heart twisted in despair, I had grasped onto the luminescence of hope, but in doing so, I let go of the darkness clinging to Ethan. I felt the grip of distant hands slipping from my own even as I reached for Maria. Ethan. No! I screamed, but the sound faded, swallowed by the consuming chaos around us. Dread washed over me in icy waves. A new sound broke through the increasingly distant echo of Ethan's voice, dissolving into nothingness. The panic swelled within my chest as my darkest fear unfurled its tendrils deep within me. I was losing him, losing the very essence of hope that had tethered me to this moment. But as I finally grabbed Maria's hand, a flicker of tenderness surged. Uncertainty hung in the air, stagnant, barely alive. We need to go, she shouted, urgency sharpening her words as we spun to face the uncertain path ahead. The world beneath us shifted yet again, tilting, threatening to topple. A fleeting glimpse back revealed only chaos, the voices of anguish fading into the din of destruction. Ethan, I shouted one last time, my heart heavy with the agony of separation. As the darkness consumed what little light remained, I didn't know if I would ever see him again. The thought resonated with shattering weight, ripping a piece of my soul away, leaving me feeling hollow even as I fought to navigate the perilous escape. Hope flickered, fragile. Beneath my grief, a faint whisper amidst the roars of a world unraveling, unseen and forgotten at the edge of collapse. And as I stumbled forward, the truth of our shattered realities began to settle upon me. Our lives had become an unpredictable storm, and I still had to carry not just one, but possibly two lives on this tumultuous journey. But amid the darkening world around us, one singular heartbeat resounded through me, my pulse pounding in my ears, a reminder that even the faintest spark could ignite an unquenchable fire. The air was thick with dust and despair as I and Maria trudged forward, each step a painful reminder of what I had almost lost. The world we had once known had crumbled, and in its wake lingered an insatiable ache, a grief straining against the boundaries of hope. Keep going, Maria urged, her voice a soothing melody that contrasted sharply with the chaos around us. Yet underneath her words lay a tremor of worry, a reflection of the turmoil that roared like a storm within my chest. I couldn't shake the image of Ethan, his face twisted in anguish, slipping through my fingers as if he had been a mirage. Would he survive? Where was he now? And how would my heart bear the weight of these questions? I could feel each heartbeat reverberating with guilt, a drum announcing my betrayal, a constant reminder that I could have chosen differently. The wreckage around us transformed into a maze of jagged memories, each twisted metal and broken beam recalling laughter and warmth that had long since evaporated. I caught a glimpse of a tattered photograph plastered on the wall of a crumbled building, the faces of a family frozen in a moment of joy. They would never know the uncertainty we faced, the slowly encroaching shadows of a world on the verge of annihilation. Sam, over here, Maria called, pulling me out of my reverie. She pointed to a narrow alleyway that cut through the rubble, a dark passageway that beckoned with the promise of safety. But deep inside, an urgency coiled, suffocating the flicker of hope. It was a gamble, something I had to take in these desperate times. That as we stepped into the alley, the darkness swallowed us whole, the air stifling and heavy with the scent of smoke. I felt a sinking sensation as memories crystallized, the time Ethan had held me close, laughing as the world faded around us, feeling like everything would be all right. But those moments felt cruelly surreal now, shimmering fragments of a life that felt like a fading dream. "Are you okay?" Maria's voice broke into my thoughts, concern coloring her features. The flickering shadows in her eyes mirrored the confusion that twisted my gut. "No," I admitted softly. "Not really." Tears welled, an instinctual response to the fear roiling inside me. "What if we don't find Ethan? What if he—" "Stop." Maria's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts, fierce yet tender. "We will find him. Somehow." Her certainty was a lifebuoy tossed into the turbulent sea. "But we need to keep moving. Together." I nodded, clinging to her words like a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone. Even amidst the palpable loss, we pressed forward, the darkness shifting around us. Each step moved us deeper into uncharted territory, navigating through a wasteland of voices that echoed my own fears. What had happened? What had I set in motion? Suddenly, from the shadows, there came a glowing light, a soft flicker barely breaking the darkness. It felt impossible, a beacon in what felt like a world bereft of salvation, and instinctively we rushed toward it. As we rounded a corner, the light intensified, revealing a small group of people huddled around a fire, their faces aglow with a sense of hope and defiance amid the grave circumstances. My heart leapt at the sight. "Look," I whispered urgently, pulling Maria toward the flickering flames. The warmth washed over me, brought a welcomed reprieve from the emotional chill that had tightened its grip since the shattering events of the day. But my relief was short-lived as we drew closer and I spotted a familiar face among them, a woman clasping a small child to her chest, their hair tousled and stained with dirt. My heart sank as realization struck. It was Sarah, the mother of our old neighbor, whom I had played with as a child. Her eyes were wide, brimming not only with fear but also fierce determination. "Sarah," I called out, my voice breaking through the clamor. She looked up, her gaze skimming through confusion before landing on me. A flicker of recognition sparked in her weary eyes, followed by something sharper: anger. "Where's Ethan?" she demanded, her voice laced with urgency and accusation. "You were with him, weren't you? What happened?" I hesitated, the weight of her expectation pressing against my heart, the truth a heavy stone lodged in my throat. The reality of it all pressed against my chest, stinging my eyes with regret. "Yes, I don't know. We were separated." "You lost him?" The sharpness of her words sliced through me, an unrelenting reminder of the choice I had made. Each syllable felt like a dagger. Guilt swelled, pooling in my stomach. She had lost everything too. The world outside had turned savage, and here we all stood amidst the scraps of our humanity, clinging to leftover strands of hope. "I'm sorry. I chose enough with the apologies, Sam. We need to stick together, not dwell on what could have been." Maria interjected firmly, her presence a steady anchor. "Let us focus on finding Ethan." Just then, the ground quaked again, a subtle tremor that vibrated through our feet and sent an icy fear coursing through my veins. The darkness around us thickened, shadows intertwining with uncertainty. I felt the familiar suffocation creeping in once again, and I battled to push it away. I couldn't afford to lose hope now. But just as the urging panic set in, Sarah reached out, offering an unexpected warmth even in my turmoil. "We've been trying to find a way out, but it's nearly impossible. We need to move before this whole place collapses." "Then we need to go," I said, driven by the spark of determination ignited in me by her words. The enormity of our plight hung heavy, but in this moment, I held on to the possibility of hope. However fragile it was, we gathered our meager belongings, preparing to exit into the now tumultuous world outside. But the moment felt laced with foreboding, a visceral awareness that perhaps within this tangled web of fate, something deeper was colliding, a revelation lurking at the edge as the very ground shifted ominously underfoot. With a last glance at the fragile fire behind us, we stepped into the unknown. A suffocating wave of dread mingled with flickers of trepidation swelling with each uncertain heartbeat. And then, as we emerged into the fractured streets, I felt it, an unmistakable presence moving in the shadows, watching us with intent. A whisper of dread unfurled within me as I turned, my heart racing once more when I caught sight of flickering flames again not far off, a signal amidst a sea of chaos. Hope and fear intertwined. Something was drawing me in, but as the darkness loomed ahead and the tremors grew louder, another revelation flickered. Echoes of Ethan's voice tethered me, unraveling my fortitude. The truth was brewing just beneath the surface, as unfathomable dangers awaited us in a world slipping faster into the void. And my heart quickened at the thought that perhaps our paths were not severed yet, but closer than I could ever dare hope. When the world outside us began to tremble, I understood fear in its truest form. Every violent shudder of the ground beneath my feet echoed my heart, racing, pounding against the confines of my chest. We had managed to find a respite in that flickering light, only to step back into the chaos. The shadows stretched like gnarled fingers, clawing at the remnants of hope each of us carried, and I felt raw and exposed. In that moment, we were a small ragtag group of survivors: Maria, Sarah, their frightened child who clung to her like a lifeline, Walter, and I, assembling fragile pieces of courage in a landscape shattered by uncertainty. But Ethan, the thought of him sent tendrils of ice coiling around my heart. I still believed he was out there, somewhere in the dark, whispering softly through the cacophony, a desperate prayer reaching for connection. Before I could lose myself in that churning sea of despair, the fierce amber glow flickered sharply, rekindling a sliver of resolve. "We need to move," I said, each word a battle against my rising dread. "The tremors, they won't stop. We have to find Ethan together. He needs us." My voice steadied, charging with the hope that he might still be waiting for the promise of return. As we navigated the precarious streets, shadows danced around us, a tapestry woven with ghosts of our past. With each tremor, I felt our unity become stronger. I could almost hear his laughter, a melody clashing against the harsh reality we had entered. I began calling out to him again, louder this time, my voice rising into the darkness. "Ethan, can you hear me? Please answer me." Each syllable was a thread pulling me closer to him, a buoy in the tide of despair threatening to claim us all. "Ethan," I called again, struggling against the tide of fear, the echoes of anguish tightening around me. It engulfed the air, cloaking every corner of my heart with dread. Walter and Maria flanked me, resolutely pressing onward, their faces a mirror to my own anguish. The weight of our situation bore down on us as we forged through the chaos, each step a determination against the despair that threatened to consume everything. But as we pressed on, the ground shook once more, an ominous warning that felt like the universe's final breath. "Stay close," I shouted, grabbing Walter's arm as he stumbled slightly. I had to hold on to everyone, to channel the strength I had left into a beacon for those I loved. Suddenly, beyond the shadows, a cry materialized, a haunting echo that propelled me forward. "Sam! Help!" The sound was clearer than before. "Ethan!" I gasped, propelled by an erupting surge of adrenaline, my heart racing as I moved swiftly toward the voice that broke through the chaos like a fragile light cutting through the dark. "Sam, I'm scared." My blood ran cold at the trembling vulnerability in his voice. "Please, I can't see you." I felt a swell of panic rise as I fought to make sense of my surroundings. Was he trapped? Was he alone? I turned to the crowd, anxiety heating my skin, my breath quickening. "Yes, close," I shouted, hope threading itself amidst the doubt clawing at me. "We have to find him. Now." As I moved through twists of wreckage, my heart pounded in sync with each tremor, every beat a battle against despair. Pushing past debris and shadows, I felt the world narrowing, walls closing in the deeper I ventured into the darkness. The echoes of Ethan's cries illuminating the path toward something I couldn't quite grasp, something so raw and desperate. "Ethan," I called, my voice rising against the tumult, a furious prayer against the chaos swirling around me. And then, I saw it, a flash of color against the gray, the familiar red of Ethan's jacket caught a wayward beam of light. My pulse quickened. "Ethan." I raced forward, shoving aside a broken board that lay across the path, and there, finally, was his fragile silhouette, trembling in the shadows. "Sam." Relief coursed through me as I reached him. He was huddled against a collapsed wall, tears streaking his face, fear shadowing his bright, innocent eyes. "I thought I lost you," said, breathless as I collapsed to the ground beside him, wrapping my arms around his small frame. I felt the warmth of his body pressed against mine, a tether in the dark that pulled me back from the brink. I thought you weren't coming back," he whimpered, his voice a fading whisper. The tenderness in his tone shattered the fragile wall I had built around my heart. "I was so scared, Sam." I know, I soothed, holding him tighter, pouring all my love into every word. I'm right here." I glanced at the ruins around us, the turmoil that threatened to overtake us all, and yet in this moment, with him in my arms, everything else fell away. "We're going to get out of this together. Promise." As I held him close, the chaos outside raged on. Yet here, in this fragile space, clarity washed over me. The darkness that had threatened to consume us was met with the sheer force of our love and connection. And then, with the ground shaking beneath us again, I took a step back, shaking away the remnants of fear. I felt a weight lift as warmth settled into the pit of my stomach, emboldening me. "All right, let us go," I declared, my voice resolute. "We can do this. Together. Okay?" I looked back at Walter and Maria, who had been waiting just outside the shadows, and they nodded, determination gleaming in their eyes, carving through the heaviness that suffocated the air. We took each other's hands, gripping tightly, one inseparable thread of hope against the storm of chaos around us. Together we faced the trembling world. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I had found my brother, and in that found radiance. With his small hand within mine, I unleashed a breath of quiet resolve, knowing that no matter how dark the shadows loomed, we would face them together as a family bound by love. With each step, we pushed deeper into the unfolding chaos, but also towards something brilliant, a potent reminder of resilience, linking our hearts against the cacophony of despair. And as we moved forward into the unknown, one thread of a million woven tales whispered through the chaos, a promise, a summons to endure, to allow love to rekindle the warmth within every heart still beating. As we rounded the corner beyond the fading shadows, I turned back for one final glance. In the chaos, I had almost lost myself to the fear, almost let go of the one thread connecting all that mattered. But I had found my way back again. Whatever happened next, I knew in the core of my heart love would light our way back, time and time again. "Hold on tight, Ethan," I murmured, feeling the weight of the world shift among us, and with an unwavering spirit, we stepped into the vast expanse of uncertainty, holding to the light, holding onto each other for dear life. And it was then that I let the final words escape, more silent, more resolute than any of the darkness we faced, the very disparity that would linger, the heartbeat of how we would carry on, lighting our shared journey forward, together always.